In this series, I discuss the 10 most highly transferred in FPL players for the upcoming game week and whether you should consider swiping left or right for them. 10th on the list this week is Cody Gakpo, who's already been brought in by 114,000 FPL managers ahead of game week 9. I think we all anticipated Liverpool to get a ton of chances at home to Man United, so it was surprising to see blanks throughout all of their forward players except for Gakpo. Given Slot's numerous attacking options, there's always a chance that Gakpo misses out, but at the moment he seems to be favoured on that left-hand side, having started every game but one so far this season. I owned Gakpo in my own FPL team at the start of the season, and I must admit he was a frustrating watch. I personally wouldn't rush to bring him in again, especially given a few tough upcoming fixtures for Liverpool. Semenyo comes in next with 132,000 transfers in. Despite Bournemouth putting 3 past Palace last weekend, Semenyo failed to get on the score sheet, and he actually registered his lowest expected goals tally for the season. However, that was always likely to be a tough fixture for the midfielder, who I fully expect to bounce straight back with a couple of attacking returns this week against a struggling Nottingham Forest side. Even with games away at City and Villa in the near future, I still fancy Semenyo to tick over nicely with FPL points, and I mentioned in last week's video how the Ghanaian could even be a season keeper for us. I just think all round he's a fantastic option, and there isn't too much point overthinking this one. Reece James was the highest scoring player from game week 8, with a goal, assist, clean sheet and all 3 bonus, giving him a total of 18 FPL points. Although perhaps not the FPL asset he once was, James still offers up some decent value within the game, as he's playing for a very solid defence and always has the chance of picking up an attacking return from a set piece. At the moment, he's playing an inverted right centre-back role and isn't getting as far up the pitch as he used to. However, he is still providing some creativity from open play. I haven't considered James for my own FPL team, but I actually think he's a pretty good option for the short term. He's just completed 4 consecutive lots of 90 minutes in the league, and Chelsea's upcoming fixtures look good from a defensive point of view. Declan Rice joins the list in 7th place with just over 140,000 transfers in. With some uncertainty over how Arteta will line up across the Gunners' front 3, Rice seems to be a safe choice for minutes that many FPL managers are considering, given he's played 7 out of 8 games in the league this season. The central midfielder scored 9 and then 11 points respectively in game week 6 and game week 7, making him a genuine option for us to consider moving forwards. Arsenal's fixtures are very favourable all the way up until around the midpoint of the season, so I do think that going for the right 3 is such an important decision. For me, although he offers some potential of returning points from set pieces, Rice just isn't among the top Arsenal assets that we should be looking to target. Moises Caicedo makes the top 10 again this week, having been brought in by just shy of 150,000 managers. After a slight injury heading into game week 8, Caicedo was only able to make the bench in the match against Forest, and that meant that he was unable to return anything, even DEFCON points. Personally, I'm slightly confused as to why so many people continue to transfer in the Chelsea midfielder. Maybe it's due to the Blues' favourable fixture run, or the fact that he scored 3 goals and they're hedging their bets on that form continuing, but given his poor offensive data, I'm personally not convinced that he's worth bringing in and including in your team's starting lineup. On the other hand, one player that I think is seriously worth considering is Bukayo Saka, who, despite not picking up a single attacking return in game week 8, still managed to gain 7 FPL points. The winger was utilised so often in that game against Fulham, and due to a combination of defensive contributions and chances created, was so heavily favoured by the FPL bonus point system. He's probably one of the top 2 most valuable assets to have from Arsenal, especially given upcoming games against the likes of Sunderland, Burnley and Spurs, who are all teams that you'd imagine are likely to concede against the Gunners. Although he's just recently gone up to 10 million, I still think that that price is worth paying, and with that, I'll be swiping right. The other player from Arsenal that I think is absolutely essential to go for is Gabriel, who's just had a price rise himself up to 6.4 million. The centre-back has returned a ridiculous 34 points across his last 3 league fixtures, which includes a goal, assist and 2 clean sheets. Defensively, Arsenal have been unreal since the season began, having conceded just 3 times in 8 games. So having a piece of their backline in our teams should be an absolute must. The bigger question is though, is who out of their backline should we go for? And my answer to that is at the moment, it doesn't really seem to matter, as they're all getting consistent starts. However, Gabriel and Timber definitely provide the most goal threat, and for that reason, I would target them specifically. Erling Haaland is now the most expensive player in FPL at 14.7 million, the highest point scorer with 83 points, and the player with the highest ownership, with just under a third of the game owning him. The Norwegian scored a brace against Everton last week. However, he could have easily had 4 goals in that game if he was more clinical with his finishing. Even so, it must be so scary to try and get through each game week without owning him in your team. And even though City's fixtures are taking a slight turn for the worse, that wouldn't be enough for me to avoid buying him. Given Salah's poor start to the season, it seems like opting for 1 premium in Haaland and then building a decent squad around him is definitely the way to go. Haaland's 2 goals in game week 8 were overshadowed somewhat by Mateta's 30-minute hat-trick versus Bournemouth, and the Palace forward amassed a ridiculous XG of 3.67 in that game. The French international has now been brought in by over 250,000 FPL managers this week, off of the back of his and Palace's impressive run of form. With a lack of viable forward options in the game currently, Mateta is definitely a sensible pick to go for. It's just really a question of whether you transfer him in this week ahead of an away trip to the Emirates, or decide to put off the move for 1 more game week. I think that decision totally depends on your own team structure, but to be honest, I wouldn't put it past him returning this week. So with that taken into account, I'm going to swipe right. Finally making it to top spot this week with 4 goals in 5 Premier League matches is Nick Voltemade. Despite Newcastle's poor start to the season, Voltemade has shone since joining the Magpies, and for now at least, he seems to have cemented his place as the first choice number 9. Fair play to all of you FPL managers who have already backed the big German by including him in your team. But for the rest of us, I wouldn't say that we've totally missed the bandwagon just yet, as he's still got a few decent games to come before Newcastle's fixtures do take a slight turn for the worse. There have been reports that Wissa has just returned to light training and hopes to rejoin the team in November, so that's another thing for us to keep our eye on. But for now at least, I think Voltemade is a decent transfer in. So there you have it, that's the top 10. What did you make of my decisions? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below. And what order would you rank these players in terms of essentialness? As always, I appreciate you so much for watching. Take care and best of luck in hitting those big green arrows.